It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. This is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the entire universe, because the radio waves go at the speed of light. I don't know if Wi-Fi goes anywhere. I don't think that's limited in its range, but the radio signals will go on. Imagine some civilization, the first thing they hear is us. Somewhere in Alpha Centauri or something.
Yeah, they would continue their search for intelligent life.
Exactly. Red Eye Radio, RedEyeRadioshow.com is where we stream live. You can get our app and put it on your phone, and you can listen when you wish to and where you wish to. Chris DeMuth, who's with the Hudson Foundation, wrote an op-ed piece in the Wall Street Journal, which should have been called "Why We Are Doomed."
Right.
You ready for this? Just to give you a little bit of history on why we're doomed. From the founding of the country through 1969, the federal government followed a balanced budget policy. Not perfectly, but with impressive consistency. Regular operations were covered by current taxes and tariffs. Borrowing was reserved for wars, economic depressions, and other emergencies. Investments in territory, for example, Louisiana Purchase, and transportation projects. The debts were paid down through subsequent budget surpluses and economic growth. From 1970 onward, the year of Earth Day, the country shifted to a budget deficit policy. Spending more than the current revenue was a matter of routine. At first, a little, and then going big. Through years of peace and prosperity, as well as war and crisis. Deficits had averaged 3% of spending in 1950 through 1969, a period that included 2 wars, a pandemic, and 2 serious recessions. Deficits then grew to 10% of spending in the 70s and 18% in the 1980s. The U.S. borrowed for 22% of spending in 2019, a growth year that would have called for a budget surplus under the old regime. The deficit ballooned to nearly half of spending during the 2020 pandemic, setting the stage for another ratcheting up of the regular annual deficits under the Biden plan. Many explanations have been given for the shift, such as the triumph of Keynesian economics and its techniques for fine-tuning aggregate demand, but the growth of deficit spending has hardly been fine-tuning and has been practiced energetically by non-Keynesians such as Ronald Reagan and Donald Trump. The best explanation is populist rather than academic. Wonder who said that. Oh, we did. The shift in federal expenditures toward mass consumption. In 1970, about 36% of federal spending went to individuals, Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, new programs at the time. Unemployment compensation, means-tested welfare benefits, also included in that. Benefit spending then grew mightily, roughly in tandem with deficit spending, and is now about 76% of spending, quickly heading towards 80%. Most of this spending has been placed on autopilot and is exempt from occasional spending reduction initiatives and government closures. The shriveling share of spending on traditional government, defense, courts, law enforcement, parks, and infrastructure, basic research has remained subject to congressional appropriations. The Biden plans, while lacking in many details, would continue this profound change with well over half of spending devoted to individual benefits. Politicians and citizens have gradually discovered a powerful new principle of political economy. The government provides large numbers of voters with immediate personal benefits that greatly exceed what it charges in taxes, billing the difference to future generations. This principle is the driving force of Biden's plans, which would be financed mainly by new borrowing, not taxes. Wow. So there you go. I mean, don't have to say much more than that. Basically saying, as we have said all along, the goal is give people money, pay for it with future generations. And, hey, people are going to love it. Keep it coming.
Yeah.
Keep it coming. Keep it coming.
Right. Well, and, this is it. Look, the thing that I know that liberals believe about deficit spending, putting it on the backs of future taxpayers, is that the current taxpayer doesn't feel it.
Right. And
it goes back to, Obama said it years ago when he was president, the debt's not a problem. And essentially the way he was breaking it down is, well, your kitchen's on fire, but you're in the bedroom.
Yep.
So it's not a problem yet.
And he calls it a syndrome. He goes, the borrowed benefits policy deserves to be called a syndrome for two reasons. First, personal benefits, however much needed or described as investments by proponents, will not generate the future economic growth needed to pay down the debts incurred to financing them. Budgeting consumption spending according to imagined futures of trouble-free prosperity rather than the current revenues is the real political legacy of Keynes. This technique is on display in the Biden administration's rosy long-term economic projections for its spending plan. Second, whatever the future may hold, the provision of borrowed deficits is deeply corrupting of democracy. It absolves citizens of recognizing their dependence on one another and politicians of accountability for managing the conflicts and constraints of today's society. Instead, it encourages the fantasy that there is someone out there in our midst whose fair share will pay for the benefits that government wants to give us. That, too, is a central element of Biden's plans, and it is a lie. And he writes, I have no solution for the borrowed benefits syndrome, which has dissolved the consensus that the welfare state is something citizens should be willing to pay for. That's the whole point. Americans aren't willing to pay for the welfare state that we wish to live in.
Right. I mean, it especially with this kind of spending, politically, people don't care.
They don't. And the biggest problem is you used to have a Republican Party that cared, and now that's disappeared. And that's been our biggest criticism of Republicans for a long time.
So I'll use the fire analogy again. It's like the local fire chief and some firefighters are going to come over to your house and say, hey, listen, we'd like to talk to you about fire prevention. No. Now, when your house is on fire, you call them quickly. You dial 911. You want them there now. With deficit spending, putting it on the backs of future taxpayers, it's like, because the point is that the Republicans were like that fire chief that showed up at the door. Hey, look, if we keep doing this, this is what's going to happen. If we keep doing this, this is what's going to happen. And that was the Republican Party in the past. They're not doing that anymore. And I don't know if it's because people don't care or if they don't care or both.
Well, when you get to the point where the vast majority of Americans believe that they can get something from the government and it's free because we're passing it on to future generations, who, by the way, aren't going to be able to pay for it, because the problem is nobody's going to pay the principal on it, but the interest doesn't go away.
Right.
And, wow, you see Yellen the other day. Was it Yellen or I forgot, was it Yellen who said, oh, yeah, we're going to see inflation? Oh, no, we're not going to see inflation.
Yeah, it was Yellen, because she forgets that she's not Fed chair anymore. You can't say that. She had to walk it back within a few hours.
Right. But inflation will come, and we're going to have problems. We have to pay the interest. I remember when Trump said, well, we can pay off our debt by just, paying it, pennies on a dollar. Mm-hmm. No, you can't.
No. Nope. No, it's funny because
that's not gonna because then nobody will purchase the reason people buy Treasury bills now, even with the little interest that it gives, is because at least it's stable.
Yeah, Berkshire Hathaway had their the media was all over, the financial media was all over their annual shareholders meeting, and they were saying, "Oh no, we see inflation. Things are going to happen." And basically implying that in what they sell, of course, they're going to everybody's going to has to pass all those costs. That's what you see. Their companies passing all this costs along to the consumer. It has to be, all of this has to be paid for at some point. We may think, or some may think, I won't say we, but some may think that, oh, well, I'll no longer be around. I really don't care about deficit spending. I don't think it's a problem, blah, 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 blah. But actually, at this rate, where the Democrats are going right now, where they want to go. Well, no, actually,
partially,
both.
Yeah,
it's a bit of both. Because of what they have spent with COVID, trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars. They want to spend more. They want to make certain things permanent out of the spending of on COVID, and then all the other stuff that they want to add on to it. It is, if they were to get their way, if they win only, if they retain the House and win only a handful of Senate races, they just might get their way after 2022.
When you look at it, and you can go up all the way to 1969 when the policy changed in the government, but we sit there and we look at this society, and liberals especially, and they look and talk about what an evil society we have been in the United States, and you look at our history has been horrible. But if you look at our history, at least the Americans back then said, no, we need to make future generations better than we are now, which means we can't burden them with this debt. We can't burden them with this interest and this principle and this thing that will actually hurt that will actually devastate the country eventually. We have to look out. We can't sit there and say, look, it's not our problem today, so we should ignore it and we should put the burden on the unborn. They actually believe taxation without representation meant something.
Yeah, right.
It actually meant something to them. There was a morality to the fact that we're not going to burden future generations with what we want right now. And if we need to keep the republic alive, well, then we'll borrow, but in good times we'll pay that back, talking about things like wars.
Right. Yep.
But now, nope. 866-90-RED-EYE.
Logging miles during the hot summer months can put a serious strain on you and your truck's health. Did you know pollutants and allergens in the air outside can enter your cab through the HVAC system without you even cracking a window? That's why it's important to check those cabin air filters. Inhaling dirty and polluted air can cause distress if you suffer from allergies or a respiratory illness. Not to mention the distraction dirty cabin air filters can cause by blocking proper airflow to your AC system when you need it most. Breathe easy when the air in your cab is fresh. Stop into a TA Truck Service Center to have your cabin air filters replaced today.
This maintenance tip is brought to you by TA Truck Service. More bays, more expertise, more solutions.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Carly, and I'm Gary McNamara, 86690 Red Eye. Yes, so when you look at the history of our debt and deficit here in the United States, it's really mind-boggling where we're going to right now with inflation probably around the corner. But my point was, you hear the liberals talk about what an evil society that we lived in, yet the goal was always to make it better for future generations. Now we're saying to hell with future generations, what we want and what we want now in order to stay in power we're going to do, and if we can get as much cash as possible that we can't pay for to the American public to sedate the masses, well, then that's what we're going to do. How immoral is that? How immoral is it? How evil is it what we are doing to future generations in this country? And we're doing it without much of what you're hearing right now from us, that you've always heard from us, that it's absolutely immoral as a society what we're doing. We're saying to hell with future generations of America. And it's immoral, it's evil, and we shouldn't be doing it. And we continue to do it as a society while proclaiming that past generations that cared about future generations, they didn't say, well, look, it really doesn't matter because this debt won't have to be paid for a long time. They said, no, we have a responsibility to ensure that future generations have it better than us. Now all we care about is us and what we believe we can get for free. And the whole concept of that we see with colleges that, oh, we're gonna cancel your debt. No, you're transferring it to other people. We don't talk about the reality of things like this. We just conveniently push it back. Why? Because a significant portion of Americans say, I'm getting something free right now, and to hell with anybody else in the future. That's the great moral society that we've created today. Aren't we proud of that?
Yeah, it's and when the fall happens, when we get to a point where we can no longer service the interest on the debt, I mean, it will.
That's going to be the problem.
It will be, and that's what I was getting to earlier. Is that based on how they're spending now, if they were to be able to get away with it, if they had won, think about this. If they had won the Senate in a big way, if they had gotten to 60 in the Senate, it'd be over.
It'd be over.
I mean, it would be over. They know right now, at least, and they keep it's like they're inside the fence and they're just pacing back and forth along the fence in terms of the filibuster thing. They keep approaching it, throwing it out there, and they realize they don't have the votes to get it done. But if they had 60 liberals on board in the Senate, wouldn't need to get rid of the filibuster. It would be full on and just bar the doors. It would be a short period in terms of the amount of spending that they would be doing, and that would be without the COVID.
Well, think about it. The spending they want to do would basically be with the budget anywhere between $10 and $12 trillion in that time period. If Democrats had 60 votes, it might be 15
it
trillion.
Might be 15, 20. I mean, think of all the things they could do.
Yeah.
It would be unbelievable.
Things that if we said this a year ago that Democrats would do something like this, people would say, now you guys are out of line. See, you're lying just like the Democrats. And now it's come to the reality of they'd really do this.
Yep.
They'd really
they would do it.
They would really borrow this money.
Yes.
And then lie to the American public that, by taxing the rich, we can pay for it. They know it's a lie.
Yeah, and the other lie, it's going to make us more productive. We'll see a return on it. No, it's not.
Oh, God, yes.
It's just over and over and over again. And as long as people go to bed at night, and how dare you? You should stay up and listen to Red Eye. But if you can't, get the app. Sorry.
In our serious discussion.
Sorry.
Get that little plug in.
As long as they go to bed at night.
As long as we make our money.
Yeah, and the world doesn't end. And all this spending is going on. And look at all this stuff that I'm getting. Look. It's like, it would be like the drunk Amazon purchases 2 days later on your doorstep. What did I order? It's like, it would be, what did the government send me? Look, it would be endless.
Do you own or rent your home? Sure you do, and I'll bet it can be hard work. You know what's easy? Bundling policies with Geico. Geico makes it easy to bundle your homeowner's or renter's insurance along with your auto policy. It's a good thing, too, because you already have so much to do around your home. Go to geico.com, get a quote, and see how much you could save. It's Geico Easy. Visit geico.com today. That's geico.com.
50% say yes and 50% say no. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley on Red Eye Radio.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara, 866-90 Red Eye. We're just going through the spending that Biden wants to do, and just the fantasy or the lie being sold and accepted by many Americans out there that the taxes would pay for it. Forget about how the taxes, if they ever came to fruition, which they never will, but if they came to fruition, would hurt the economy. And the Biden administration has admitted that. That's why they're out there begging other countries, if we raise our corporate taxes, will you please raise yours?
Right, exactly.
Unbelievable foreign policy that is.
Yeah, exactly.
But the fact is, even if they raised the taxes, it wouldn't come to pay any close to anything of what we're spending. It's a mirage. It's a lie. Taxing the rich is not going to pay for everything. What we're doing, and we've made the decision, we've gone through the history of it. The op-ed piece in the Wall Street Journal did it. What we were borrowing back in 1970 when we started with this philosophy and what we're spending now, and to the point where they're spending now is absolutely insane. And once they get to that level, they're not going to want to stop it because the public expects it.
Right.
And we talk about how immoral past generations were. We can't be the way. Trump wants it to be the way that it used to be. Hey, there are problems and challenges we had in history, and there are immoral things that we have done as a country and as a society. Absolutely. But one thing that we did right in all of those years is we cared about future generations. Now we say, to hell with them. What can I get now? I'll say it again. Because the left always talks about the moral society that we're attempting to build. No, you're not.
No.
There's nothing. When you look at a society and what they can do that would create such devastation to end up destroying your society and future generation as to what the Democrats are doing and the lies that they are putting out. And the reason they're doing it, and I thought the op-ed piece did a great job, is they're sedating the masses by saying, we're just going to keep giving you free stuff.
Right. Right.
And you just be happy with it and don't think of where it's coming from, and will lie to you and soothe your conscience that it's going to be paid by some abstract rich people that exist out there, which it is not. And therefore you can feel really good about yourself, and then we'll attempt to control every other aspect of society. We'll try to control speech.
I mean, you look at the infrastructure and the poll on how people feel on the Democrats moving on infrastructure. Now interject in the polling, interject the following. They want to make $2,000 a month permanent. What's your feeling on it now? If you add something from the infrastructure plan, if you add something in terms of a check in people's bank account, how does the polling change? Because at that point, it's no longer about infrastructure, but it isn't already. Not the Democrats' plan.
No. Let's go to Keith in Kansas City about inflation. Keith, welcome. You're on Red Eye Radio. Welcome to the show. Hi.
Hello. I'm glad to get a chance to talk to you.
Thanks.
First of all, inflation really took off in the 70s when Jimmy Carter, he did actually do something right. He put Paul Volcker as the Fed chairman. Now, Paul Volcker was a Democrat, but he was a balanced budget Democrat. And what he did was crank the interest rates so high it pulled back inflation, because there was a while where we had double-digit inflation in the 70s. That was with a combination of President Reagan pulling back the regulations and doing good things for the economy. There is a limit to how far the politicians can kick the can down the road. Giving the definition of inflation is more money chasing fewer goods. And right now, our national debt went up by something almost $8 trillion or something like that in just the last year. What that's going to do is it's going to cause hyperinflation, or the price of everything going up very rapidly. And it's not going to be a long time in coming. It's just about here now. It's happened to every other country who starts printing its way to printing money to pay its bills.
Yeah, Volcker. I think. Let me see. Inflation was close to 15% in March of 1980. Can you imagine that? 15%, and by 83, into the Reagan administration, it fell to 3%. He had raised the federal funds rate, which had averaged 11.2% in 79, to 20% in June of 1981. Look at this here. The prime rate rose to 21.5% in 21.5% in 1981 as well, which again helped to lead to the recession, and unemployment was to over 4% at that particular point. That's how far inflation got out of control.
Wow. Look, it's definitely on the way. There's no doubt. But the question is there a lesson learned from it?
Well, and by the way, because he was crediting Volcker, but the policy also helped to put us into the recession. And it was a bad recession at that point.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Right. And so the question is, because if you look at it, and a lot of the economists are looking at inflation on the way, you see that with gasoline prices and everything else that you would lump into essentially everything you need to survive costing more. By the summer of 2022, let's hope that politically it does not fare well for Democrats. But keep in mind, they're the party that's been very successful in saying, and they'll do it with gasoline, these big oil companies are making too much. We need to go after them. And also, we need to put more money in your bank accounts from the federal government.
Well, this is why, and remember, this started roughly because Trump even talked about it, the Chinese manipulating their currency.
Right.
In 2012, you also had Romney talking about it.
Right.
Remember, the Chinese manipulating their currency. And we just burst out laughing because that people would call us and say, they're manipulating their economy, or excuse me, their currency. And we went, so are we.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
We do it all the time.
We do it in the United States constantly.
Yeah.
The Chinese have to stop doing that. We have to stop doing that.
Exactly.
I remember Trump brought it up too. When he was running, that the Chinese manipulate their currency. Nobody really talks about that anymore with what the Fed is doing.
No. Well, again, because everything, if you look at how muddied the waters are right now, just in general, I think that's another post-COVID effect.
Well,
and it really is about survival. Nobody's thinking about the economy. Nobody's thinking about government spending, the Fed, and how much they manipulate. And
by buying our own debt with printed money, what do you think you're doing? It's
right.
We can look. A lot of it, what people won't buy, we'll finance ourselves.
Yes.
Well, you don't finance it.
Right.
You're printing money to do it.
Right. Exactly. It's like saying, the credit card company's calling, hey, you owe us some money. Hey, could you lend me some money? I'll make the minimum payment. If you guys will lend me some money, I can pay you.
Let's go to Mark in Chicago. Mark, welcome. You're on Red Eye Radio. Welcome to the show. Hi.
Yeah, hi, Gary. Hey, Eric. I love your dry humor. You guys had me in stitches yesterday. Tonight,
thanks.
You idiots are brilliant.
Thank you.
I want to make a comment about two sides of the coin, the budget. I could add a tidbit about inflation, but here it is. The Congress people, they say I'm 1 out of 1,000. They don't hear from people, for one, and people don't think you can fight City Hall. I ran into him. I didn't want in forums to ask this question, but I met him in McDonald's one day, and I asked. It wasn't Nancy Pelosi, but I said, "Didn't you and the Speaker of the House mortgage out this country?" Now, keep in mind, this guy was on the Appropriations Committee. He knew accounting, had a degree in accounting, and he didn't hesitate. He told me, "Yes, we have." And the other federal Congress guy, the senator, I'm more conservative, libertarian like you guys. He wrote me personal letters before. And when it comes to Republicans in a conservative state, I've never heard from them. Or they'd send a form letter if they did. It was just a catch-all. Oh, the other side of the coin, the people, go along, get along. That's the main issue. And like Gary says, they want to be BS. And they're convinced you can't fight City Hall. And they can't budget themselves. They don't live within their means. Everybody's in debt.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. Our silence was, I don't think we disagreed with anything that you said there.
Yep. Thanks, Mark. We appreciate it. But that's it. If you don't care about your own bills, what do you care about what the government is spending?
Yeah. We're getting the things that Republicans complain about Biden spending, but Trump did the same. Trump did not spend and did not even advocate spending what the Democrats are spending.
No.
So don't try to make that point. Because that's what people do now. We talked about this earlier in the show. Mm-hmm. You make an argument. They try to defend, well, your guy doesn't matter about what our guy did. We confront him at that point.
At that time,
now, we did go after him for a few things that he wished to do with spending. And we went after the Republicans big time on spending, but he signed what the Republicans put out. But we went after him where he said we should borrow a lot more and pay pennies off on a dollar. So anything.
And his idea for a $2 trillion package for infrastructure too, we said no.
Yes, we said no. But even that, looking at what the Democrats wish to spend, the Republicans under Trump would have never, ever. There is no indication that they'd be spending what the Democrats wish to spend right now. No. You cannot make that point.
Yeah, no.
866-90-RED-EYE.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara, 866-90-RED-EYE. Let's go to Edwin in North Carolina. Edwin, welcome. You're on Red Eye Radio. Welcome to the show. Hi.
So I talked to a college student yesterday at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, the Tar Heels. So that's issue number one right there. Because the professor, the kid's economic professor, said we need to be borrowing more money. $28 trillion is not enough because it's so cheap to be borrowing money right now. That's the crap that college professors are teaching your next generation, and it's terrifying. All right, God bless you guys.
Okay, thanks. Well,
thank you.
But you know something. I mean, it's a ridiculous argument to begin with, because you could say, if I'm going to say right now, like the mortgage rate is whatever it is now, you can get 2% now?
Mm-hmm.
Can you? Yeah. Whatever. In fact, I was looking at mine, but I have such a low balance now. It's like, it's not worth it with the fees and everything else for me to do it.
Right.
But, you look at it and you go, okay, I've got it locked in. But the national debt isn't locked in.
No.
The national debt, I mean, some of it is with long-term, bonds and treasury bills, but a lot of it's short-term. 3 months, 6 months, whatever. Those interest rates, when inflation will go through the roof. I know, because when I had treasury bills, when the interest rate was low, I was making 5-6%.
Right.
Think about that now. I don't even know. What is a 3-month pay or 6-month pay now? 0.03.
I have no interest in even Googling it.
But
I lose money by Googling it.
Look, one of the things we said, the transformation in this country, the biggest transformation we saw is when the whole thing that what did Trump call the Republicans?
The swamp.
The swamp, yeah, the whole thing with the swamp, when the swamp was created, that really, I believe, was a moment Trump catapulted to importance and dominance in the Republican Party. And it's really when Boehner left and Paul Ryan took over, and they wouldn't renegotiate the deal that Boehner had done for the budget.
Right.
And people said the swamp is the Republicans cooperating with the Democrats to spend too much money. And Trump was behind it big time. By the time we got to the spring of that year, the next year, which would have been 2016, Trump was advocating what that professor that our last caller brought up. He was advocating the same thing.
Yep.
We need to borrow while interest rates are low, and we need to borrow a lot. And we said, no, because you're not paying it off. It isn't a guaranteed interest rate that you're paying.
Right.
And then he dropped that. That didn't go anywhere. But he threw that out a couple times, and I don't know whether there was a trial balloon, but he didn't get a lot of pushback from Republicans. Not as much as I thought he should have gotten.
Right.
Because it was a terrible idea, just like the professor saying it is a terrible idea.
Yeah, it is.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Pilot Flying J Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the world, 866-90 Red Eye. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. RedEyeRadioshow.com is where we stream live. Get our app, put it on your phone, and listen when you want. It's been one of those crazy days. There's just so many topics out there. And I just came across Reason Magazine, which is the libertarian magazine that exists out there, if anybody doesn't know. And I wasn't going to go here, but if it amuses me, I figure it might amuse somebody else, right?
Right.
The CDC's guidance for summer camps is insane. Last week, the CDC released new guidance to help summer camps mitigate their coronavirus risk. Given that summer camps involve both children and the outdoors, two factors that render COVID-19 significantly less worrisome, and will be opening in the wake of widespread vaccination. Most summer camps open when? Late June or early July, right?
Yeah, I guess depending on where you are. Yeah.
Yeah.
Somewhere there, right?
Well, the thing is, because I went to summer camp up north, and I'm thinking of meatballs.
Yeah, I think that's about right. Anywhere between mid-June and early July.
Oh, because the water isn't, even in the little lakes you have at the summer camps, they're not warm until you get to July.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Not up there, right.
But two factors that render COVID-19 significantly less worrisome and will be opening in the wake of widespread vaccination. One might have expected the CDC to depart from its characteristic overcaution. Nope. This is among the most restrictive, unrealistic guidance the agency has released during the pandemic. It's more limiting than the CDC's guidance for vaccinated people exercising outside more generally. If followed, summer camps would be miserable, and the campers would be miserable. They would be deprived of physical contact and in considerable danger of overheating. The government has essentially recommended that summer camps treat kids like prisoners. Here are some of the restrictions. Everyone at camp, including staff and every kid over the age of 2, must wear masks at all times, unless they are eating or swimming. They should wear 2 layers of masks, especially when social distancing is difficult, regardless of whether the activities are indoors or outdoors. Wow. This is my favorite one here.
Yeah.
I have a new word here. Well, it's not a new word, but it's a word that describes something new. Campers should be placed in cohorts.
Cohorting. We're going to have cohorting.
Campers should be placed in cohorts. Not at that young age.
No.
They're not. Campers should be placed in cohorts, and their interaction with people outside the cohort must be limited. I have an idea.
Non-cohorting children.
I have an idea what the
It's
left
the problem
would like
with America today.
If we're going to make cohorts, why don't we, in order to make sure people feel safe in their safe places, why don't we segregate the cohorts, cohorts by skin color? The left may like that, huh?
Oh, they'll probably be asking for that. Maybe they have already.
Oh, my God. So you must be in your cohort. There should always be at least 3 feet between campers of the same cohort and 6 feet between campers of different cohorts.
How do you know?
You have to know who's in your cohort. Oh, so maybe we need...
How do those who are managing...
By skin color, no.
Well, or you're going to have to give them, I don't know, some kind of special badge or something they're going to have to wear?
I guess you have to know who's in your cohort. There should always be at least 3 feet between campers of the same cohort and 6 feet between campers of different cohorts.
So I got to keep up with my cohorts.
Yes. Staff should keep 6 feet away from campers at all times, whether inside or outside. Distance should be maintained while eating, napping, or riding the bus. The CDC suggests seating kids in alternating rows. The use of physical objects that might be shared among kids, toys, art supplies, electronics should be limited. Camp should not permit any close contact sports and indoor sports and should require masks regardless. And then they write here from Reason Magazine, if anyone is curious, there are separate restrictions for outdoor gardening.
Really?
I've got to look at them, don't I?
Yeah, of course. If you have them available, we have to. It's a must.
Considerations for outdoor learning gardens and community gardens. Okay, it's too long to read. It's huge.
All right.
I mean, there's like wait a minute. Am I going to the title company for a new mortgage here? Because that's what it looks like.
Sign here, initial here, sign here, initial here, sign here, initial here. All the parents that show up and have to sign off on everything.
Well, they write about the cohorts and all this. Reason Magazine. This is bonkers. First, COVID-19 is not easily transmitted outside, even if people are maskless. Second, all campers will have likely had the opportunity to be vaccinated by the time summer arrives. Third, the campers themselves are not at risk of a negative health outcome. For kids, COVID-19 is probably less hazardous than the flu. In a typical year, more kids drown in the United States than have died from COVID-19. From a pandemic standpoint, kids playing together outside is an extremely safe group activity. And again, the vaccines work. They offer almost complete protection for anyone who is worried about getting sick. And then they go and they talk to several health experts out there. David Zewig interviewed several health experts for New York Magazine who assailed the guidance as cruel, irrational, and little more than virtue signaling. He writes that Mark Gorlick, a doctor at Columbia University and an expert on COVID-19, said, we know that the risk outdoor of infection is very small. We know risks of children becoming seriously ill or even ill at all is vanishingly small. And most of the vulnerable population is already vaccinated. I am supportive of effective measures to restrain the spread of the illness. However, the CDC's recommendations cross the line into excess and are frankly senseless. Children cannot be running around outside in 90-degree weather wearing a mask, period. He said an infectious disease scientist at the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, Anthony Fauci's agency, spoke with me about the CDC guidance on the condition of anonymity because they were not authorized to speak to the media. Quote, with staff and parents vaccinated, there is no reason to continue the incredibly strict mitigation efforts to put severe limits on activities, they said. Charitably, the scientist, who has an expertise in respiratory viruses, continued, masking kids at camp outdoors is simply virtue signaling. Requiring kids to continuously wear masks at camps, even when playing outside in the heat, when it provides little additional protection, is unfair and cruel to our children. Considering the children are incredibly at a low risk for developing severe illness, the minimal benefits of mask wearing do not outweigh the substantial costs of discouraging kids to be active and their overall health. Like I said, you want politics? This is what the CDC has become. It's ridiculous.
And it's not going to end.
Nope.
They're going to continue this well into next year. And it's ridiculous. It is insane. And it is part of the virtue signaling that comes from the left. We care more than you do. If you don't wear a mask, you just want people to die. You hate people. Remember what the president said the other day, or actually it was Jen Psaki. He feels patriotic. I think at some point he said it too, right? What he's doing is patriotic.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he's not a patriot when he's around former President Jimmy Carter and his lovely wife.
No, and that's the whole thing. They tell you one thing, and they don't even. That's the entire thing. They don't even believe the science.
No, they don't.
We've talked about before, the Democratic governors that have kept breaking what they're telling the public to do. They actually don't believe in the science that they're promoting. It's just like climate change. They don't believe in climate change by their behavior. They say one thing, and they live life in a different way. And it's just, you wonder, what is the point in all of it? We know climate change is to control activities to the delusional narrative that they have, but their delusional narrative is about controlling people and their behavior and their quality of life, and the same thing here in this pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the Democrats are getting to the point, and the liberals are getting to the point, because that's now who is running, without question, as we know, the CDC. They need to get the permission. By the way, do we have the permission of the unions to put out this document? Have the public unions been able to? Do we get the campers union on this one?
Right.
No.
I mean, it gets to be ridiculous. But you get down to the fact that they simply wish to control people's lives. Why?
Yeah.
For what reason?
Right.
Tell me what the end game is. They can't even get to the end game because telling somebody who is vaccinated already that they need to wear a mask outdoors, just as we've said, economics, which is how people live lives, by the way, is incentive. There is no incentive to get a vaccine if you're being told you still have to live like a prisoner. So why are you doing it? What is the point? Well, we must ensure that there is zero risk. Well, then we're never leaving our homes.
Right.
Where the disease spreads.
Well, kick the can down to September and October, and then you get into flu season, and if it worked during COVID, it works during flu season.
Expect that.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
It's going to happen.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Ag Secretary Tom Vilsack points to one thing in the American Families Plan that helps make sure all of the country's school children are fed.
We're going to make permanent this incredible and historic effort to feed kids during the summer months. There are, as I said, nearly 30 million American children who are in free and reduced lunch status in schools. At the end of the school year, there is no program other than a summer feeding program.
He spoke at the White House Daily News briefing where he showed reporters what the summer EBT card looks like.
It allows parents the opportunity to go to the grocery store as they do with their SNAP card and be able to purchase additional fruits and vegetables and other wholesome food for their children.
This way, children will be better prepared to return to school in the fall.
We're also extending the opportunity to impact free school meals in high-poverty school areas by focusing on the community eligibility program that essentially identifies the ability of a school district where SNAP participation is roughly 40% to extend free meals to everyone in that school.
This is Stephanie Ho for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
The USDA report is brought to you by Cenex Roadmaster XL Premium Highway Diesel Fuel.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara, 86690 Red Eye. It's finally good to see more media outlets coming and going after LeBron James. There's a Breitbart. 2 weeks later, LeBron still hasn't apologized to the cop he targeted in the tweet. He's still not apologized. After an avalanche of criticism, he deleted the tweet in mid-April, claiming that the tweet was being used to create more hate. And then, as we know, on Monday, 2 weeks after his initial tweet, he issued a half apology, not to the officer, but to say that he fueled the wrong conversation. Basically, that he didn't pay attention to Ma'Khia Bryant,
right,
who was the perpetrator of the illegal act.
Right. Instead of apologizing to the officer for doxing him effectively,
right,
by posting his picture online.
And then the Outkick did the same thing in an editorial piece, saying LeBron says he's sorry for not praising Ma'Khia Bryant, not the officer he tried to restore or
right,
he tried to destroy.
Right.
And through the whole thing, it goes, LeBron James has chimed back on the shooting of 16-year-old Ma'Khia Bryant. He wanted to apologize not to the heroic officer whose life LeBron tried to destroy, but to Bryant, who tried to stab and kill a girl.
Right.
LeBron responded to the Vox column that asked people why they are not saying Bryant's name in honor of Say Her Name, a social movement that says it raises awareness for black female victims, as if she was the victim of the incident. She may have been a victim in life. I don't know. The foster home she was in, I don't know. Of the incident that was happening at that moment, she was not.
Two separate issues. They may be related, but two separate issues in terms of the discussion of what happened in that moment.
As a reminder, LeBron doxed the officer who had to shoot Bryant to stop her from stabbing another young girl to death. LeBron tweeted out the officer's face and body to ensure that the officer could never again walk in public safely. LeBron said the officer was next, as in the next Derek Chauvin.
Yep. Your next hashtag.
LeBron was wrong before, and he's wrong again. The story is a police officer saved the life of a young girl. The name of the officer and the skin colors are not relevant. A cop saved a life, period. Yet LeBron has made the conversation only about race.
Yep.
And that's what we had stated yesterday when even, we had read, I forgot which conservative publication it was. We said, guys, this wasn't an apology. Stop saying this. Read the actual thing. Pay attention to what he actually said.
Right. Who did he just ask the basic question? Who did he apologize to?
Yeah.
He didn't. Nobody.
No.
Nobody. Here's your forecast.
Rain across the mid-Atlantic states, the southeast and the Gulf Coast may linger a bit today. Showers and thunderstorms are likely across the Florida peninsula. Some of those storms may be severe at times, and hail is not out of the question. But behind that weather system, you can welcome seasonable to below normal temperatures that will spread across much of the eastern part of the country, and those average to below average temps will continue through the rest of the week. Let's take a look at the mid-Mississippi Valley and into the Ohio. Showers and thunderstorms there, as well as strong gusty winds and maybe even some large hail as a cold front sweeps in. And in the west, widespread precipitation, especially in the northwest into the northern Rockies through tomorrow, as well as cooler temperatures. But until that cold front gets there, temperatures are expected to be above normal across much of the west today. The exception? Enjoy, if you will, those above normal temperatures across much of the Great Basin and Southwest, spreading east from the Rockies and into the northern plains. And there's a look at your national forecast from Red Eye Radio. I'm Linda Kenyon.
Nothing on the road gives truck drivers the peace of mind to power on like Hercules tires and their trucker-tested, rig-ready Strong Guard series, featuring premium materials and an advanced construction that extends mileage and tread life, plus 3D siping, giving you more control in slippery conditions. Strong Guard was built from the ground up to let you cover more ground. Whatever you're hauling, wherever you're hauling it, the legendary Hercules Performance Promise is your co-pilot in confidence, covering workmanship and materials, casing allowances and retreads, and a limited protection policy that lasts up to 7 years. Protect your payload without overpaying and power on with Strong Guard, only from Hercules Tires. To learn more about Hercules Tires, log on to HerculesTiresCommercial.com. That's HerculesTiresCommercial.com.
Overnight DJs and sometime provocateurs, Eric Harley and Gary McNamara on Red Eye Radio.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara, 86690 Red Eye. And I was reading that article from Outkick, which was formed by Clay Travis and Jason Whitlock, a part of it, as you all know. And they, early on, were attacking ESPN for their liberal spin. And they, you know, when it comes to sports, because this article here about LeBron, and let me just finish this here, and then we'll get to the I'll get to the point that I wanted to make. This is an article that was written in Outkick from, let me just get it here, was written by Bobby Burek, who wrote that, let me get it here. As Will Cain said to Outkick last week, LeBron James, at least in the world of sports, is the single most destructive force to race relations in the United States. LeBron is purposely misleading his followers, all 50 million of them. He does not want them to see the video, which shows Bryant attempting to kill a young girl. LeBron will not tweet out the full story with context. His sole goal is to convince his supporters that white police are racist and are hunting black people. That is a lie, but it is a lie LeBron has chosen to spread, a lie that millions of Americans are afraid to acknowledge is a lie. You know, we've never been afraid. We don't care. You know, we've always believed, like Jordan Peterson said yesterday, are there consequences to telling the truth? Yeah, but it's the best consequence.
Yeah, out of all the consequences,
right,
it's going to be the best result.
No matter what the blowback you get, it's still the best consequence. Right. You and I have talked about it before and said we just wouldn't know, and I think we both get this from our parents, we wouldn't know how to operate in any other way.
Right.
It's just who we are. To have us not tell the truth or be forced to go along with a false narrative, we would rather shovel manure in Lubbock.
Yes.
And that comes from the Buddy Holly story.
Right.
When he said that, that's
in the middle of summer.
in the middle of summer. And it's just the way that I am, and I know it's the way that you are. That's, I think it's why we get along. I think you have to have, you cannot be comfortable with telling a lie. And Outkick, the sports outfit, by the way, bought by Fox yesterday.
Right.
I believe will retain their independence. They better allow them to retain their independence. But I think that, you've got Whitlock, and I remember Clay Travis. Remember his back and forth Twitter wars with Mark Cuban on this? Mm-hmm. The problem was, I this is what I believe. Okay, this it's different for different sports organizations, but I was initially shocked at how many sports organizations went along with the big lie that started last summer, and the NBA and the NFL all getting involved with Black Lives Matter and the big lie that police are systemically racist to hunt down blacks. I believe part of it was access. They were afraid that if they didn't ride that line, they would lose access. So they were willing to acknowledge that lie. For some reason, for some sports people that I know, they seem to suffer from guilt. And the only thing I can think of is if you suffered from guilt, then you must have those feelings, those discriminatory and racist feelings inside your heart. Because from a lot of sportscasters from different networks, and these would be white sportscasters, they talked about how they had to reevaluate. Well, really? You mean you're a racist? You have to reevaluate how you think? You had stuff to learn?
Right.
We need to learn from this.
What were you doing wrong before?
I heard that from a lot of white sportscasters, and my first thought was, what did you have to learn? What were you doing wrong? What were you thinking before?
Right.
Were you not in reality? Were you enabling racism at some point? Do you have guilt because you have these racist thoughts? I don't have any guilt because I don't have any racist thoughts.
Right.
But a lot of it, I believe, was access. Management of many of these sports broadcast groups were afraid if we come out strong, we might lose access to covering these teams. But Outkick came out strong, and they need to be complimented for that. Fox Sports 1, Marcellus Wiley, he came out extremely strong and said, look, I'm not going to buy into this stuff. This isn't what's going on. I'm not going to buy into it. Mm-hmm. And both Jason Whitlock and Clay Travis said, we're not going to do it. We're not going to buy into this big lie. And they built a brand by doing it, saying, we are not going to lie. We're not going to lie in order to get along with the sports industry that has decided to buy into the lie. We're not.
Right.
And they built a brand, and they should be congratulated for building that brand, which is, we are not going to allow athletes, politicians to lie about race and to lie about what is the reality of what's going on in order to create racial divisiveness and hate. And Outkick has come out strong. We aren't racist. We don't believe the majority of sports fans, who they are tailoring to more, but I think they built a wider audience because of their stand. But they actually built that's how much people want the truth. They built a brand on it, and in a relatively short time, I wonder what Fox paid for them yesterday.
Yeah, I don't know.
But they built, and they call it out. Like I said, I haven't seen, when I see this, I'll see that in conservative media in sports, with just these sentences alone. LeBron James, at least in the world of sports, is the single most destructive force to race relations in the United States. LeBron is purposely misleading his followers, all 50 million of them. He does not want them to see the video, which shows Bryant attempting to kill a young girl. LeBron will not tweet out the full story with context. His sole goal is to convince his supporters that white police are racist and are hunting black people. That's a lie, but it's a lie LeBron has chosen to spread, a lie that millions of Americans are afraid to acknowledge is a lie. Why? The intimidation and blowback that comes with it if you tell the truth.
Yeah. Right. And that's it. That's how the left operates. If you speak out against it, you're going to be shamed out of existence. And look, I mean, it's to the point. Whether it's a protest mob or the woke mob or whatever it might be, the mob rules, and people are afraid to act against them.
The mob, yeah, they're afraid of the mob. But as we've always said, it's where we come from. It's again, people have always say you have privilege. I go, absolutely, I had parental privilege.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah.
My mom lived to her early 90s. My dad is still alive at 95. I've had their influence my entire life.
Right.
They are the ones that had the biggest influence of molding me. And what I learned from them is you judge each person as an individual. And that's what you do. And there's no ands, if, or buts about it. You treat people when you meet them initially with respect until they no longer deserve it.
Yep.
Color of skin doesn't matter. Nothing matters. Boy Scouts reiterated that to me. You help the community. You help whomever needs help. Nothing else matters. You help other humans. You serve other humans, because that's the philosophy that I grew up with, that you grew up with, that many others grew up with. I don't have any guilt about what others have done.
No.
If somebody has broken the law,
that's on
right.
them. Whatever they've done that they feel guilty about, I can't speak to that. I know what I have and haven't done.
So congrats to all the people at Outkick out there.
Yeah,
which,
I hope it's that what they're doing keeps growing.
Yes, and I'm not talking about the money. It's just that I'm sure that came in from them being bought. Mm-hmm. It's it shows what the value is. That there's a value and there's an audience out there of people that want the truth.
Being able to speak frankly.
Right, and people that are sick of this racist intimidation that is being perpetuated by LeBron, by the NFL, by the NBA, by the NFL, by other sports leagues out there, by other corporations out there, by the President of the United States, by the Democratic Party, by the left in this country, and somebody must stand and go toe-to-toe. Now, we in Conservative Talk Radio are used to it, but in sports, the intimidation was even greater. So for Outkick to come out and thrive with this, we salute them.
Yep.
Great job.
Yep. Congratulations.
Yep. And if we don't agree with
because in today's world, it most often goes the opposite direction. You speak out against the mob, the woke mob, or whatever it might be, and it won't be long until you're done.
And just a warning, though, not a warning.
Piece of advice, maybe.
A piece of advice to the folks at Outkick.
Yeah, yes, different company.
Outkick. Yeah. If we disagree with you, we will let you know.
Yeah, sure.
Yes. So,
right.
You have this today. You have earned our respect today. Earn it tomorrow. No, but that's the same for us. It's the same for everybody.
Sure.
It's what you do every day.
I think they should. I think, given what we know so far, they would expect that.
Yeah. But, taking on LeBron James the way that they have, I mean, that's when I read that, I went, oh, Eric and I said that.
Yep.
And it needs to be promoted more. We need to look. I think we have an obligation and responsibility to fight racism, even when they try to make it stealth.
Yeah.
When they hide it. When they claim they're one thing, because that's the hardest one. When you have racists that become aggressive and promote the fact that they are anti-racist. That's the toughest thing to deal with.
Right.
Because they tried to build up credibility and then they get the media to say, you and I talked about how even conservative publications will talk about, well, in schools with the critical race theory, this anti-racist philosophy, there's opposition against it. Well, it's not an anti-racist philosophy. No. And we found out, we caught Fox with it, the New York Post doing it.
Right.
Don't get caught in doing it. Don't follow the narrative, the bait and switch that they're attempting to throw at the public. well, this is anti-racist philosophy. No, it's not. It's racist.
It's racist.
And the good people in media have to stand up and say, we don't care how you package it. We're against racism, and we will call you on it. 866-90-RED-I.
The fuel and exhaust systems inside diesel engines work closely together. As a result, fuel and exhaust-related issues can be some of the most difficult to diagnose. A symptom in one system can often arise from a problem in the other. Here is a common fuel and exhaust issue that might not be what it first appears. You're dealing with regens. Regeneration, a normal self-cleaning process inside your engine, is a prime illustration of how fuel and exhaust systems work together. Typically unnoticeable, regens occur inside a component called the diesel particulate filter, or DPF, a part of the exhaust system designed to control emission levels. If the fuel doesn't burn completely, the additional soot puts extra strain on the DPF, sometimes to the extent that it can't keep itself clean enough to operate. When this happens, the equipment can't be used while it completes an aggressive and time-consuming reboot. To help equipment owners have less downtime, Cenex Premium Diesel is enhanced with cetane improver that provides a more complete burn, generating cleaner exhaust for a longer-lasting DPF.
This report is a service of Shell Rotella.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara, 86690 Red Eye. Finally, I never heard of this guy, but
yeah,
punk rocker John Joseph. Now, the problem is I'm looking at him, and he's got gray hair and gray facial hair. So first off, looking at him and saying punk rocker, and I guess punk rockers get old, right?
Okay, yeah.
On Outdoor Concert Backlash, they had a concert in New York City. And there was a backlash because a ton of people showed. And his response, well, let me read this here. This is from Breitbart. New York punk rocker John Joseph from the bands Blood Clot and Cro-Mags responded to the backlash over a large punk show recently held in New York City, proclaiming he could give a blank less about those who disagree with the event, added that critics should stay the blank home and watch CNN. Thousands of concertgoers packed into Tompkins Square Park for the show, which appeared to be the largest city-permitted concert in New York City since the start of the coronavirus pandemic. The park was filled that day. He explained in a statement to Punk News.
Punk News?
Punk News, yeah.
Oh, well, I got to subscribe to that.
So apparently there were a lot of complaints that were too many people in an open space. And he said, if you don't like it, go watch CNN.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.